I'm so excited to talk to you. And we are officially live. This is so exciting. So let's see if will this work. Yes, awesome. Oh my goodness. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. I'm kind of like fangirling a little bit. And hopefully like people will see the link and start tuning in, and everything will be perfect. I've just posted one more little reminder to Twitter, and hopefully we'll get some more views. Oh my goodness, and I'm so excited. So people will probably start tuning in, but I am going to read your little bio because you are super impressive. So today I'm talking with Sara Portman, and she is a USA Today best-selling author of historical romance. And the reunion won the RT Reviewer's Choice Award and was named the 2015 winner in the historical category for the RWA and Golden Heart contest. And Max apparently wants to say hi. Oh, okay. They're not seeing you. Do you want to say hi? Can you guys see Sara now? Is this a technical difficulty? Did we lose you?
Hi, I think I just lost you. Are you back?
Yes. Okay. Awesome. Can I see you? Can everyone see Sara? Maybe? Hopefully. She's the guest of honor.
Can you see me? Am I here?
Okay. Jess is commenting. I was like, Jess, can you see her? Now you see her. Okay. Before you were like probably the voice of God. That happens every so often. I don't know why Google Hangouts does that. Awesome.
Sorry about that. I was worried that maybe I lost my internet connectivity.
You never know what's going to happen with this Google Hangouts. There's something about Google Hangouts where if it's the bandwidth or if everyone, I don't know what goes on. Sometimes Google Hangouts is not a friend. But hopefully tonight, hopefully tonight will work for us. Fingers crossed. Oh, hi, Lady Gizmo, and hi, Jess. Jess is so sweet, and Lady Gizmo, I love Lady Gizmo, always tuning in. Dedicated viewership, makes me happy. Oh my goodness. So I'm so excited to talk with you. So for those of you, as Max joins the live stream, so for those of you who've been following Twitter, I met Sara at the Researching the Romance Conference at Bowling Green State University. And so ever since then, we've been kind of keeping in touch, and I'm so excited to talk with her tonight. I mean, do you want to say, is there something you want to say about either your platforms or something you're working on? Do you want to say a few words?
Sure. Just first, hello, everybody. I'm excited to be here, and I apologize if this is my first ever YouTube. This is my YouTube debut, so I don't really know. I'm not that technically savvy. I don't really know how much is going on here, but I'm excited to do this, and I'm excited that Angela has me doing this for the first time ever. It's good to break through barriers, I guess. I've never even done a live Facebook video, so that's how video live averse I usually am. So, and I'm coming to you from my daughter's bedroom. Actually, it's their like a spare kid's bedroom in my house to avoid you listening to my dogs. But so aside from that, I have my current project that I'm working on is a new series called The Merchant Royals, and it follows sort of the rising class of wealthy merchants in and around Liverpool in immediately following the Regency. You would call it late Georgian, pre-Victorian era. And my first book in that series will not be coming out until 2019. So I have kind of a large gap because my last series came out in September, October, and November, all in a row last fall. And then I don't actually have a book coming out in 2018. And then the first book in The Merchant Royals will come out in 2019. So getting all of those written and turned in is my current project.
So that's really exciting, though. I mean, you already have 3 books to your name, and so I mean, I have to tell you, I got a little bit of Jane Austen vibes from the first one, and so I think that is probably the highest compliment I can give. The first one was serious, like I don't know, there's some Austenite vibes going, but I'm curious, so I have to ask, why historical romances? Because you're still writing historicals. Like, what about historicals is your subgenre?
Well, I always read a lot of historicals. I really started my introduction into romance in the first place was, I started with my mom's Victoria Holt Gothic romances. And sort of moved on from there, and I've read a lot of contemporary romance. I still read contemporary romance, but historical romance is the thing that I always go back to. If you asked me to list my top 10 favorite romance novels, probably 8 out of 10 of them are going to be historicals, although don't ask me to tell you which 10 they are, because that's not fair, and I'm not prepared to limit it to 10 right now. But if I were, I would say 80% of them would be historicals. So when I first started writing and thought, gosh, I want to do this, I was actually writing contemporary. And I have a handful of contemporary romance drafts. And I never felt like I had really sort of hit the mark with one of those. And then sort of on a whim, I thought, well, I'm reading a lot of historical. Maybe I'm going to start to write. And I wrote a few scenes. I wrote actually the first few scenes of the reunion. And I didn't even know who they all were and what their backstory was yet at that point. I literally just kind of had sort of a setup to the scene, and I wrote it. And actually had about 5,000 words is all. And I entered it into a chapter contest for a Romance Writers of America chapter, and it won. And that encouraged me to finish it, which I did. And here we are. But I really think that my writing style and my voice lend itself better to the time period that I'm writing in.
Oh my goodness. We're gonna be talking about this, but Lady Gizmo has a question for you. She wants to know how you decided on your next book title.
That's a funny story. So I had decided on the series title, and I knew that Merchant Royals was going to be the next series, sort of because this class of people has at some point been referred to as merchant princes, this sort of powerful class, even though they're not in fact titled or royalty. And I wanted to do something that was maybe, my first series titles were very short and sweet. The reunion, the offer, the chase. I wanted to do something maybe a little more clever than that. But I struggled. My husband and I ended up, every time we started to talk about it, we ended up just getting silly and laughing about, because they're set in and around Liverpool. We started coming up with sort of silly Beatles plays, Beatles song titles, play on words, like The Long and Winding Railroad and I Wanna Hold Your Land, and stupid names like that. So it took me a long time to finally come up with the titles, but all of the titles ended up being, they're just plays on the royal titles. So the first book is called Princess of Scandal.
That sounds intriguing. I'm like, I already want to read that. That's already going on my to-be read list right now. That sounds awesome. I love that title.
Spoiler alert, she's not a princess. You find that out right at the beginning. That's not really a spoiler. She's not a princess. She is not, in fact, a member of the titled aristocracy, the heroine.
Oh my goodness. So I have so many questions for you. I mean, so when we first met, I had not read your books, but I have since then. I've read all 3 of them, and I'm so excited to have this discussion because I really enjoyed them. And for people who've been watching my channel and you've heard me say some things about historicals, because one of the things that kind of gets me is you're writing for modern readers, but you still have to deal with the historical time setting. And so one of the things you do so brilliantly is capture the modern mentality in historical context. And I absolutely love how you write your heroines. So I'm curious, where does that kind of come from? Because you're able to insert kind of these like almost running jokes, or you're able to kind of call them out on the historical setting, and they have, really great perspectives. I mean, I love the chase. I know the reunion is what, the awards won, but when I got to the chase, I was like, this is my girl. I loved her. I loved how she was like, I will be a widow. I don't care. I'm just gonna pretend to be a widow. I mean, I was just having a blast reading that book. I just got the biggest kick out of her. So if you guys read the chase, you should. You definitely get the chance, and it's on sale. But so how did you kind of determine how to, insert the kind of contemporary ideas into historical? Because you do it really, really well, and it's kind of seamless. So that was my question. Very long question.
I appreciate the compliment. I suppose I wish I had more of a sense of process to how that happens. I enjoy sort of the running commentary style of the sort of inner monologue that sort of, you can't, that concept that, your manners don't allow you to say out loud, that doesn't mean they weren't thinking it. There's a lot of that happening, that commentary within particularly within the heroine's head, but to some extent within the heroes as well. There's a lot of that commentary that manners would not have allowed for them to say those things out loud, but they're thinking them. One of my favorite scenes to write in the reunion is, it's fairly early in the book when they're just having sort of they're at home at her aunt's house, and they're particularly well visited that day because all of the gossips are coming in to see what's going on, and they want to get the latest. And so they're sort of swarmed with all these gossiping ladies, and Emma has all of these thoughts about the various women who arrive. And I had so much fun writing that scene, and she doesn't say anything rude out loud to these women, but she's thinking it. And it's fun to sort of be pithy and a little snarky at some of the things that these women are doing that everyone has to pretend that they don't notice.
I mean, I also have to admit, you also insert humor into your writing, and you made me laugh out loud a few times. I just pulled up the passage. I'm going to try and remain spoiler-free for people who might not have read the book, because I think you should. So I might only talk maybe the first 10%, but I am going to quote some things. But my favorite this is the opening in chapter 3. So John runs into Emma, and he has this kind of inner moment. He's like, over the last few hours, he learned his betrothed had lost her parents, all but withdrawn from society, had no suitors but an aging widower with the brood of children. But no one had felt compelled to share the most pertinent piece of information, that she'd been in attendance all evening. So basically, he's been talking about this woman, all around this woman. Everyone's been talking about her, but like nobody realized, hey, she's right over there, and just kind of pointed him in that direction. So, I just saw Bree's comment. I was like looking over. Hi, Bree. You're making me blush. Oh my gosh. But no, I mean, I'm just thrown off. But I love how you have humor. My favorite, I also wrote this line down. How many resurrections can one family possibly produce? I mean, I love how you insert humor into it. So I'm curious, when does this come into play? Like, is this something you do in the editing phase? Does this come naturally to you? Like, how do you do this humor? Because I mean, you really make me laugh.
I appreciate that very much. The humor, what's there, does not come in the editing phase. I think my voice flows more freely in the original drafting, and the editing phase is where I'm trying to clean up, and I have to make a conscious effort sometimes when I'm editing and revising not to pull all of my voice out of it, that sort of initial flow. I'm sort of oddly old school in the way that I write, because I flow best when I write mostly dialogue with very few dialogue tags in my initial draft. It reads more like a script. And I write longhand with a pen on lined paper. I buy, when it's back to school time, when I go buy my daughters their school supplies, I stock up on the single subject college ruled notebooks, and I just, when they're like a dime or a quarter at Target or whatever, and I just stock up on those, and that's what I write in. I fill about 3 of them in the process of writing a manuscript, and I flow best that way. And that's all of my sort of snarky or funny or any kind of dialogue. Most of my scenes start at the core as conversations, and then I add in references to the setting and the motions and what they're wearing and what they're doing, the actions of what's happening while they're doing it, where I need beats in the conversation, things like that. But it's very dialogue heavy, and that's how I flow at the beginning.
So you have some questions over here. So Bree, who I absolutely adore, Bree is such a sweetheart. If you guys aren't following her YouTube channel, you should. Everyone should be following Bree. So she wants to know, how did you come across and read your first romance?
My first romance that I read would be Gothic romances, the Victoria Holts that were on my mother's shelf. So my mother is a very avid reader. So I grew up with shelves and shelves of books. And, you know, for a long time I was working through the, you know, the Little House books and those kinds of more middle grade type books that we had. But I hit the Victoria Holt books and started to read other Gothics. I read, my 7th grade book report was on Rebecca. And I just moved on from there because my mom had me covered from everything from Kathleen Woodwis and the Julie Garwood historicals and lots of historicals. I really read historicals for a long time before I sort of crossed over and started reading some contemporary romance.
And then I was actually going to ask this question, but Kristen's beat me to it. Hi, Kristen. Thank you for watching. She wants to know if you were a plotter or a pantser. And I wanted to ask that question as well, because you have quite a few details scattered in. So I wanted to know if you were plotting.
That's a good question. And for a while there, I would answer that question that I'm a little bit of both. I start to brainstorm about a book and I end up writing little parts of scenes and things like that. I'm for the most part, I guess I would call myself a plotter. However, I actually was just in Chicago at the RWA Spring Fling conference there a month or two ago, and was talking to one of my writer friends, and she said that she heard someone at a conference describe that there is a third profile that's not plotter or pantser, and they refer to themselves as a puzzler, and that they start to put pieces together, and they do a lot of advanced planning about pieces, but they're not a linear plotter, and they're not a linear drafter working without a plot in the way that you think of either a plotter or a pantser, but they work in a very non-linear way, and that's me. And as soon as she described it, I thought, oh my gosh, that's what I am. That's me, because I'm very much a puzzler. I'm very non-linear in the way that I write.
So I think I noticed this particularly with The Chase. And again, I know I'm jumping ahead to the 3rd book in the series, but I think I noticed this one with The Chase because your characters, you had details that became really significant later on. And I'm going, did she write this in the beginning? I mean, how did you know that this detail is going to be important? Because that character has, you know, I don't want to, you know, spoiler alert or anything, but that character has a very particular trait, and it was kind of embedded in the narrative at the early stages, but it doesn't really come into fruition until probably midway, 60%, when you're going, oh, now I see why this was going on in the dialogue and things like that. So I was curious because that doesn't seem like something that you can kind of pull off as, you know, a pantser. So, I mean, I'm kind of glad that you're explaining your process.
Yes, those were not written sequentially. That sequence of series, those were written out of order.
No, I mean, because the details, because you're able to kind of bring things back around. And so I was really curious about the planning, you know, or plotting there, because it's just, to me, when I see those things, I really appreciate them as a reader. So as a writer, I was curious how you were implementing them, because you also kind of, I don't want to call them quirky, but I mean, they're not exactly the typical characteristics. Again, like for some reason, I think The Chase just like really resonated with me. I was like, I love my Juliana. She was, I think she's my heroine. But you know, they have their own unique way about them. She's, you know, she's a very intelligent character, and Juliana, Emma, she's got a little bit of a stubborn streak to her, and she's really intriguing. So I mean, how do you come up with the characters? Do you kind of have like their little mini bios printed in front of you? I mean, how do you kind of come up with your characters?
I will tell you each story and who the character is for me, and I'm very different from other writers I know, starts with a particular setup and a particular a lot of times it's the meet cute, but for me, it's definitely a very particular setup. And then I end up sort of backfilling from there. Well, if I want her to react a certain way in this scene to create the moment that I'm envisioning, then I'm going to need her to have this kind of a personality. So obviously that, you know, in the reunion, the initial sort of the opening setup there is that he, you know, she's very quick to take offense with the way that he's behaving and conducting himself, and understandably so, but she's very able to stand up to him about it, sort of call him out on the carpet for that. And that's a very different personality than, say, Lucy, who would have handled that in a very different way. Although she's not a weak person, she definitely would not have been as directly confrontational. So it really builds from the moment and sort of what I need to make that moment make sense.
Interesting. And we do have another question here. I was just looking up for the DMs because someone did want to know how you make your historical stories applicable today.
That is probably an essay in and of itself. But I think the most important thing to make them resonate with the readers today is just women have to be powerful. And readers today understand history, and they understand the differences in laws and manners and societal norms. But that doesn't mean that women weren't powerful in reality in different ways. And that doesn't mean that we can't work with the hand we're dealt, so to speak, to create powerful women. And one of I think the most important aspects of creating someone who's powerful is someone who knows why they're doing what they're doing, who knows what they want, and they're doing it for a reason. So it's not so much that she has to do something to defy the norms, but she has to be doing whatever she's doing for her own reasons because she chooses to, not because she's sort of just riding the tide of what she's supposed to be doing and nothing changes. Because the core of every story, the first thing you learn is about goal, motivation, and conflict. And if you have a woman who is convinced because of the circumstances, era that she lives in, that she's not entitled to her own goals or motivations, you can't have a story and it can't be interesting. So you have to build someone who's confident enough in herself to feel that she's entitled to go after something, whatever it is, even if that something is the conventional marriage and children.
And so we do have another question here, which I absolutely love. And I wish I had actually thought of this myself. This is from Kate. She wanted to know, what's the most interesting thing you learned when doing research for your books?
That's a good question. I think some of the most interesting things, I've learned a lot of interesting things about Liverpool, because that's where my new series is set. There, one of the things that was surprising to me because of the size of Liverpool, because of how busy it was, how populous it was in the sort of the mid 1820s, which is when I'm writing there. The Liverpool would not have an actual police force for another 10 years after that. It was very much this sort of Wild West of Britain, because there's all this new money coming into Liverpool. You have Irish immigrants coming in. You have sailors from all over the world. It's becoming this huge center for trade. You have brokers who are acting as the go-betweens between the merchants who are arriving with cargo on their boats and the manufactories around England. If you want to buy cotton that's coming over from America, there's a broker who acts between, who's directing who's going to get to buy that cotton. So there's all of this activity going on. There's so much commercial activity, and it's becoming such a populous place. It's second only maybe to London, and yet there are some dock watchmen, there are a handful of night watchmen, and maybe a few constables, and that's it. There's no real police force. The business people had to have their own security forces. There was just a very high rate of crime. There were actually highwaymen that worked within, you think of, when you talk about highwaymen, you think about, as your heroine and your hero they're riding their coach out of London, headed out on the Old North Road. Once they get out into the deserted area is when you think they're ripe for the picking for these highwaymen. There were highwaymen working inside the populous areas of Liverpool because they could. So it was sort of this thriving, growing, rising middle class area, but at the same time, it was sort of on the edge. It was dangerous, and it was a little bit of the Wild West of Britain at the time. So I'm very much enjoying writing in this place and time right now for this series.
Oh, wow. I mean, so you really do your research. And guys, in the questions, please, in the comment section, please ask your questions. I'm looking up some right now, so make sure you ask Sara your questions while we got her. I have another question here from Kate. So she wants to know how you differentiate yourself in such a crowded genre. And I think that's a brilliant question, and I love it. And I wish I had thought of that myself. But how do you differentiate in romance? Because there are so many writers.
Wow, that is a great question. And I guess we're all trying to figure out the answer to that. It is a crowded genre, and there are a lot of us. And there are a lot of really great historical romance authors out there that I read and love. So it isn't easy to, I guess if somebody figures out the answer, message me and let me know. But the most thing that you can do is try to make sure that you know what your voice is, that you're writing what you're proud of, and hopefully people will find you. I mean, obviously, the basics of marketing, that whether you're traditionally published or self-published, every author, particularly a rising author, has to fight that uphill battle of trying to find readers. And that's why we're out on social media and making sure that we're trying to go to events where we can interact with readers and break through. But it is an uphill battle. It's sort of a strange book world right now. I remember, 10 or 15 years ago thinking, gosh, I wish I need something more to read. I wish I could find a new author. And then I would find an author and I would read everything that she had written because I was hungry for more stories to read. And now, because of ebooks and how many books there are, how easy it is that every book ever written practically is available immediately. And there's so many new authors. Now I look back and I think that how ridiculous it was that I ever felt like I had a time where I didn't have something to read. But it is hard for people to find you. The best thing that you can do is just to continue to be out there and continue to put out the best work that you can, and hope that people who do find you stay with you because they're liking what they read.
So one of my questions was, what did you wish you knew when you first started writing romances? And this is Max. Everyone, he's like decided to join the live stream. He's like, I'm going to keep barking until you pick me up, woman. So Max says hi. So what did you wish you knew when you first started writing romances? If you could go back and tell Sara, Sara 3 years ago, you picked up the pen and entered your first contest, what did you wish you knew?
That's a good question. I think what I wish I knew at that time is that there's no hurry, that there are 1,000,001 historical romance novels out there, and there are going to be a 1,000,001 more, and there will be a place for mine. And it wasn't a race for me to hurry up and get mine out there because my window was going to close. I had a lot of stress about feeling like I had missed a window at one point, and the window doesn't close in that way. There may be a moment, your moment may not come till later. I I was writing for a long time before I was published, which I think is the story for a lot of authors. And just the idea that there's no ticking clock. I think that would have been less stressful for me if I had been able to better keep that in mind.
I mean, I'm pretty sure a lot of writers feel as if there's that pressure. I mean, I think that's a very real feeling people, have to worry about. Yes, the dog's growling. He's like, I completely agree with her answer. I don't know if you guys can hear him growling. He's like, I agree with that. And I just saw that Bree had a couple questions. Bree's awesome. Again, everyone should be following her YouTube channel. I love Bree. So what would you like to see more of in the romance genre?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know that I'm feeling the absence of anything right now. I don't know. That's a good question. Maybe let me think on that one. Let me think on that one a minute. I do see that Bree also asked about my auto-buy authors. In the historical romance, I would say Julia Quinn has been an auto-buy author for me for a long time. Lisa Kleypas is absolutely an auto-buy author for me. Sherry Thomas. I'm reading her Lady Sherlock series right now, and which is not quite true romance, but I will tell you she does an amazing job of creating a very powerful female character who does sort of bow to some conventional norms, but for very unconventional reasons. And she does an amazing job with that, with her Lady Sherlock series. So I have a number of auto-buy historical authors. I don't know that I have a lot of auto-buy contemporary authors. I bounce around because my contemporary is much more what I'm in the mood for when I'm taking a break from historical romance.
And then it looks like Lady Gizmo has a handful of questions for you. Go, Lady Gizmo. She has a few. So, do you research how you want your characters to appear in the scenes? Do you look at costumes, outfits, and hairstyles for your characters? How much detail in the time period is given to their appearance? I think that's a great question.
Yes and no. So yes, I do research, and yes, I make sure that my descriptions, I work hard to try to make sure that my descriptions are as accurate for the time period as they can be. I am not a description heavy writer, period. So I don't have long opening passages of the sun rising over the hill, glistening on the dew. When I'm, as a reader, long paragraphs of opening description or even description in the middle lose me, whether that's setting or the dress or whatever. So I definitely try to weave in those descriptions, and especially when it's significant for a reason. So in particular, in the second book, The Offer, some specifics of clothing come into play with the story about dresses, both the dresses that she wears for a couple different events or the embellishments that are on a dress for a person that she meets later on, because they tend to be a French trend. So there are aspects to clothing that are significant to the story. So I probably am paying much more attention to clothing and describing it in The Offer than I am for the other two books.
I mean, my first thought went right to, again, I think the chase really resonated with me. I was thinking of the cane and how he had the coat up. There's a very, this is not a spoiler. This is in the first chapter or two. We have our heroine who sees the hero from behind, and he has a cane and he has his coat. Can't really see his face. He has his coat up so she can't see him. So she assumes he's this old man, and she approaches him, not to realize he's this devilishly handsome, hero who's going to capture her heart. So that costume in particular really kind of just jumped out at me, and my mind went right to that scene. So I love that question though for Lady Gizmo. And then so one of the things I saw on your Goodreads page, and I kind of loved your answer, so I'm going to steal this question and ask it again, was what's the best thing about being a writer? I saw that on Goodreads and I was like, oh, that is such a great question. And I think that's something that I wanted to ask you.
Oh, that is a good question. I don't remember how I answered it for Goodreads, but do you know what I think one of the best things about being a writer is being able to have those moments where you can craft the perfect response or the perfect moment. There's a scene in Funny Girl. I'm a Barbara Streisand fan. Not everybody is. There's a scene in the movie Funny Girl where she's talking after she's talked to Nick Arnstein. She's talking with her hairdresser, and she says, "For once, I said just the right thing. I didn't say too much. I didn't say too little. I said just enough, and then I walked." And how many times have we had that in our life where we get out of a conversation or we walk away from a situation and we think, "Oh, now I know what I would have said. Now I know how I could have handled that." And writing books lets you do that. You get to craft that moment to go exactly the way that you want it to go, for the maximum effect, for the best entertainment, for the most emotional pull. And that's why my writing is so conversation dialogue heavy, and why it always starts sounding like a script, because I think that's what I'm really crafting in those moments, is trying to capture that if I had handled myself exactly the way that I would want to, here's how I would have done it. Here's how I would have made the perfect set down or made the perfect comment to let this person know how I felt. That's what makes writing so much fun.
Oh, I love that answer. And looks like Bree has some more questions for you. Bree is killing it tonight. She's got these, amazing, eloquent, thoughtful answers, these questions for you. I think, she's running this. I love this. As a reader and writer, what do you think draws you more to historical romances over contemporary?
I think maybe it's more transporting. Obviously, contemporary romance, one of the recent contemporary romances I read was a contemporary cowboy romance set in the world of bull riding. That's transporting for me, because that's not a world that I move in. But for the most part, contemporary romance is entertaining, but historical romance is just it's more transporting. And I've always been a little bit of a history fan and a little bit of an Anglophile. I studied in London when I was in college for a semester, and I've always been drawn to sort of the US is kind of a baby compared to all of Europe when you look at sort of our history, our buildings, our architecture. So I've always been a history buff, and I love reading about it.
And then we have another question from Kristen. I like how she's having me ask. This is funny. So she's like, Angela asked this before, but I love how it's like my question. I like those little, like, it's like the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon over here. Kristen wants to know, what are the characteristics you love to see in romance heroines?
Strength, ultimately. And I enjoy more. I tend to relate in heroines. I tend to enjoy reading about, if you compare my heroines, I tend to enjoy reading about the Emmas more than the Lucys. And Emma is much more, I would say, quick-witted and directly confrontational when she feels like she needs to be, maybe more stubborn and independent. And that's what I gravitate to when I'm reading historical romance novels. Not every heroine can be exactly that mold, but my favorites have, some pretty strong-willed heroines. The other thing that I think maybe is underrated that we don't notice, but that tends to be so key in our favorite romance novel heroes and heroines, is the best ones, our favorite ones that stick with us, tend to be self-sacrificing, not in a weak, everybody else comes before me kind of way, but they're willing to make the big sacrifices for the things that are important in a brave way. And I think Julie Garwood does a really good job of that. Her heroines, one of the most admirable traits about her historical heroines is that they are in the end, very, very self-sacrificing without being weak.
I was gonna say, I was trying to figure out, like, there was one comment, I was like, I missed somebody. I think those are all the DMs though. So Chris and Ashley, and apparently apparently you have someone who's like, is this the Chris and Ashley? I was like, hey, Rock Chick. I hope you guys got that reference if you're romance readers. How did you figure out what writing schedule works for you, if you have one, and how do you deal with writer's block? That was something else I had written down, like, what inspires you to write? So Kristen and I are on the same page.
The writing schedule that works for me is to write very early. I get up, Monday through Friday, I set my alarm for 5 o'clock and get up and write before my daughters get up to get ready for school, before I have to jump in the shower to get ready for work because I have a day job. So my kids are busy, our family life is busy. So I write at 5 o'clock in the morning. You'll see sometimes I check in on Twitter with the 5 a.m. Writers Club hashtag. There are a lot of us who get up early in the morning and find that's our magic writing time. I am not a night owl, so I have no capacity after about 9:30 p.m. to write a coherent sentence. So after about 9:30, my maximum activity that I'm capable of intellectually is basically watching TV. So I'm writing it early in the morning, and I do write in other pockets of time when I have them. And writer's block is a funny thing. I think we all have days where it seems to flow, and then we all have days where we feel like we've pushed really hard and written a couple of lines or a paragraph that we've stressed over. And whether you call that writer's block or you're just not sure where to go next, or the muse wasn't there, I'm not sure. But you some days are win and some days are not big wins. But you have to keep cracking every day. One of the things that I do, if I find that because I'm not a sequential writer, one of the things that I can do to keep making forward progress is I will bounce to another spot, or whatever it is that is sort of knocking at my imagination that day. That's what I will work on. Or I will start to sort of free write notes, not lines or words that are actually going to end up in the manuscript, but I'll literally write out questions to myself. What did they talk about while they're in the carriage? What is she thinking here? Why did she go to get the knife? Those are things that I literally will go through all of those and write out questions longhand and start to answer them to get myself back in the groove.
When you said you were writing in your notebooks, my first thought was, oh my goodness, her hand is gonna hurt. I was going, that's some old school writing when you're going to be getting your ink on your hand and everything else. What is it about writing things by hand that just lends itself to your writing process?
I feel I edit myself too much and can't get into a flow when I'm typing. So I can draft on my laptop, but when I do, I tend to backspace rewrite a lot, and I can't really just get into sort of the conversation flowing. So I can do that in handwriting because I can bounce back up, add an extra word, but I'm not actually deleting and retyping. I'm too tempted to edit when I'm at the computer. So what I end up doing is I'll write a scene longhand, and when I sit down and type it into the computer, that's actually my first revision of that scene. As I'm typing it in, I'll start to add more dialogue tags, correct things that didn't flow. If I had a bounce in point of view, or any of the errors that I made while I was writing it quickly, my first revision is effectively typing it in the computer.
I don't know if you just saw what was going on in the comment section or not. I was just dealing with this. So 1 second. That just kind of threw me off a little bit. I don't know how much of that you just saw. So, okay, that threw me off my game for a minute. Well, as the moderator, I see things pop up that doesn't necessarily go live. So I was just seeing something that really threw me off my game. So
I'm seeing some of it too, I think. So I don't know if others are.
Well, there were two that specifically did not make it on air. Yeah, I'm not gonna say them. So moving on. Moving on. Do you have any advice for aspiring romance writers?
Yeah, sure. My advice is to keep writing. There are a lot of I have a lot, my own personal story and the story of so many of my published author friends are that they just wrote for a long time before they ended up being published. And frankly, I was probably writing for more than 10 years before I got my first publishing contract. And honestly, for the first 5 or 6 years of that, I had no business getting a publishing contract. I was honing my craft. So I think, my answer is to keep writing and keep working on it and keep improving and keep producing more. Because even if, if you have a completed manuscript and you feel like it's ready to begin querying and get out there, it's only going to benefit you if that does actually sell sometime down the road. If you have 2 other manuscripts or 3 other manuscripts in the works or completed or partially written, that's only going to benefit you. So I would, just keep going, keep writing, whatever phase you're on, make sure writing is a part of that phase too.
Yeah, no, thanks. Yeah, just want to say thank you to everyone who reported those comments. A couple more came in. They were again hidden. But thank you for having my back. You guys are awesome. I appreciate it. Obviously, that kind of flustered me. So thank you guys. You guys are awesome. I love you. So yeah, I also wanted to ask about how you determine, because you're right. Yeah, I'm getting back into this. So you wrote kind of a forced marriage or an arranged marriage, but in a very different way. So I'm curious how you take kind of a classic trope and rework it. So I was curious about how you kind of go about taking something that's a little bit more established and making it your own.
That's an excellent question. I don't know that it was as consciously done as that. The reunion, I literally wrote from the opening scenes. I knew what I wanted to happen, that I wanted them to have this broken engagement, and he had disappeared for 4 years. And not only was he back, but then after this interaction that they had, he decided he wanted to hold her to the engagement and she wanted out. So that basic setup is what I knew I wanted. And I wrote those scenes before I even knew what he'd been doing for the last 4 years, or why he was back, or why he needed a wife. So I wrote that in a very non-sequential sort of pantser way for those first few scenes. And then I had to go back and sort of build, okay, well, where has he been for the last 4 years, and why does he need to get married now, and what's the rush, and why? So that's, again, I think that's just sort of that was the idea that popped up and that entertained me, and ultimately that's what I stick with. Is I am not very structured. I'm drawn to what I find entertaining, and because at the end I'm a reader, and I know what I like to read, and I want to write that. One of the things I appreciate about Tessa Dare is she has a very she's very good at sort of situational comedy, these sort of ensemble comedy scenes that are sort of screwball funny sometimes. Even the Romancing the Duke, which is her Rita-winning historical romance. She won the Rita in 2015 with that one. That is this great sort of fan base within the story for these books that the heroine's father published. It's just that those are the scenes that I'm trying to write. Those are the moments. I'm trying to create these entertaining moments because that's what I like to read.
I think you create entertaining moments. I really enjoyed reading your books. I mean, I mentioned before, I said we were going to get into it, but it kind of gave me a little bit of Jane Austen vibes because their first impression didn't exactly go too well. And so I was getting like a little bit of Mr. Darcy Elizabeth vibes going on there. And I really kind of liked that because you don't write insta-love, and the relationships do progress over the course of the narrative. And so I was just curious if there's kind of a reason why you're not doing insta-love. Is that because that's not something you like as a reader?
I do have to say, as a reader, I'm probably not an insta-love person. That's I tend to be more of the, sort of initial friction becomes love stories that those are the stories that appeal to me.
And then I just put in the comments section, I'm curious if anyone else has any questions for you. I'm curious if people have read the book, if they want to ask more questions about your romance writing. My question to you is if there's something about romance that you wish was talked about more. I know you're very involved in Twitter, so I was curious about Romance Sandy, if there's something you want addressed more when it comes to romance, if there's a light you want shined upon something when it comes to romance.
I think mostly I think the thing about romance is just how amazing the community is. And I think if you're on Twitter for too long and you pay attention to certain accounts, it can seem like it's a high conflict community, and it's not. Overwhelmingly what you're seeing in social media and what you're seeing in real life when you're at these writers' conferences and you're interacting with your local writers group chapter is an amazing level of support and sisterhood that, frankly, I wrote for a lot of years sort of by myself in solitude, and I was a member of RWA nationally, but I had never been to a conference. I had never participated in a local chapter, and I had no actual connections of writer friends at any stage in their career. And when I finally put myself out there, attended a national conference, met some writers, joined my local writers group, I regretted the number of years that I spent without that support network and without that sisterhood, because the romance community is amazingly supportive, and the overwhelming majority of authors in the community believe in the basic concept that a rising tide lifts all boats. And it's a very much sort of a pay it forward ethic in the way that people work with each other. And I'm very proud to be a part of it. And I hope that I'm paying it forward to other people as much as I have received help from others.
Aww. I mean, that's how we met. We met because you were there with your group of writer friends, and you were talking about your books. You were talking about, writing with each other. I mean, that's how we met.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
We do have some more questions popping up over here. So Lady Gizmo wanted to know if you self-publish or use traditional publishing, and if you get to decide on your book covers.
So I am traditionally published through Lyrical Press, which is Kensington Publishing's digital imprint. As a new author, I don't get a lot of say in my book covers. I get, they've based some basic input. For instance, in my first series, I provided just basic physical descriptions and the fact that I thought that my stories were a little more heroine centric. And so we agreed that with my editor that they would be heroine only covers versus heroine with hero or just hero covers. I did specifically ask, please, 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 for the cover of the offer, could the heroine be in a red dress? That was my one big ask. Can she please be in a red dress? And they did, and that was wonderful because that's a beautiful, beautiful cover. I was very fortunate. Not my choice because I don't get to choose, but Natalie Gray is the cover artist who did the 3 books in that series, and she did a beautiful job. I was very fortunate that that's who Kensington chose to do the book covers. They're beautiful, and I think possibly that she might be doing my next series as well. I'm not sure. I haven't seen covers for my next series yet, but I'm excited to see them.
And we have a dog joining us again. This is Max again. Hello. I posted on Instagram, I was like, he's going to crash. I knew this was going to happen. So we have another question here from Jess, from me to you. She's awesome. If you guys are not following her, she posted a couple really great videos on Cockygate. So if that is something you're following, you should definitely go check out her channel. Just do it. You won't regret it. So she wants to know, out of all the secondary characters within your series, do you have any favorites?
Sure. I think probably in the Brides of Beadwell series, Lady Constance in the second book, The Offer, is one of my favorites. Again, because she's a character who has decided she's at a point in her life and a situation in her life that she feels like she can say whatever she wants. So she's more entertaining because that's always more entertaining. So I very much enjoyed writing Lady Constance and deciding how she was going to react to situations and what might come out of her mouth.
Again, I just got like a Jane Austen vibe, when she has those fun characters. And then Lady Kizna has another follow-up question. She really wants to know about these book covers. So she wants to know about the font size and placement of your name. And the name of your book is all decided by the publisher.
It is all decided by the cover artist and approved by the publisher. And I did not have any input in that whatsoever.
And then I have another question here. This just came in from Kate. I love Kate. So shout out to Kate. So she wants to know if your friends and family have read your books and what they think.
Actually, I'm very, I was very pleased and appreciative that a number of my friends and family have read my books, and they have been very supportive. Obviously they love me enough that if they had hated the book, they probably wouldn't say. But I did get a couple of texts from family who, the basic gist was, look, I was prepared to love this book just because you wrote it, but I actually think it's great and I'm loving it because it's good, which is probably the best answer you can get. I love that they were willing to love it just because I wrote it, but that also that they actually enjoyed it. So I'm very lucky to have supportive friends and family.
Oh, that's amazing. That's so sweet. You make me happy when I hear something like that. And then Chris and Ashley, we have another question. Again, we apparently, Kate over here is like, oh, is this the Chris and Ashley? So I think you have a built-in fan if you ever decide to publish something. So what are your suggestions for making sure one picks a good publisher? So that's a really great question, because do you have an agent or do you go directly with the publisher?
So I have an agent, and my agent submitted to publishers on my behalf. I did not do that directly. I think I've only worked with one publisher. I've only worked with Kensington. I've only had one editor within Kensington. I've had a very good experience. I don't know if I've had a long enough career to talk about the trips and traps of different publishers and what happens when you don't have a good match and you're with a publisher that you're not happy with. and depending on the circumstances of your first sale, sometimes you find you're choosing between options, and sometimes you find you've only received one offer, and that's the offer that's on the table, and you're effectively choosing between that offer and self-publishing. So everyone has a different set of choices in front of them based on how their situation develops. But I personally knew that I was targeting being traditionally published, and I felt that my best path to that was to work with an agent and submit through an agent. And I've been very happy with Kensington and my editor, Essie. They've been great and very supportive.
Kensington, I mean, that's a big name romance publishing house too. I mean, that's very impressive when you say you're with Kensington. I mean, that has some clout right there.
They've been very great. And one of the things that a lot of new authors had said about Kensington before, and was that they pay attention to their whole list of authors, not just to the few big names, and then it's sort of everyone else. They just kind of let them go out into the market and see which sort of assume the cream will rise to the top, and then they'll become the big names for them. Kensington puts a lot of support behind their whole list of authors, regardless of whether you're new or you've sort of been hitting the lists for a long time. So I was very pleasantly surprised. I expected as a new author to get virtually no marketing support from my publisher, and that's not what happened. I feel like I was very pleased with the amount of support that I received from Kensington relative to what I had expected.
That's amazing. And then, because we have another comment from Jess over here from me to you. So she's very involved in this genre over here. And so she mentions that one of her clients has had issues with the publisher, but you're very lucky that you've gotten a good match. So it looks like things worked out in your favor.
Very much so. Very much so.
Oh my, and so I just posted, I was in the comment section, if anyone had any other questions, because I was just looking down at my notes, and I think you've answered all my questions. You made this very easy on me as the interviewer. Like, oh, ask, answer. So I was just curious if you had anything you wanted to ask, if you were like, oh, I would have loved to have spoken about this, or I'd love to add that, or something in that regard, or if anyone else has any other questions, because you answered mine.
I don't know if there's anything that I feel the need to tell everyone about. I did see the comment from Kristen that she's going to look for my books at the library. I will say that my books are on overdrive, so there are a lot of libraries that have digital editions in their collections. If you're looking for my books at the library, there are also I know there are some libraries that have the print copies. My library in particular is great about getting in books that are requested. So that is something that if someone's interested in reading the books and they like to read a hard copy and they're not necessarily ready to spend $15 on a print edition, which my books, because I'm with Kensington's digital imprint, the print copies of my book are on the expensive side because they're small batch printed. So if you're a reader who likes to get a print copy and you don't want to spend the $15 to buy the print copy from Amazon or Barnes & Noble, that would be my pitch, is to request it through your library, even if your library doesn't have it. I know mine and several others are really great about filling those requests and adding requested books to their acquisitions list.
And your book is still technically on sale, I think, though. Is it still on sale, or is it the sale over?
The sale is now over. It went a lot longer than it was supposed to. It was supposed to be done on the 27th, and it went sort of well into June. It was supposed to be done on May 27th, and it went well into June. So now the ebooks are no longer on sale. The print copy, oddly, of The Chase is $3 off at Amazon right now if you're a print copy. So most of my print books are $15, but The Chase is on sale for $12 at Amazon right now in print. And oddly, it's on sale for 60 cents off. It's $14.40 at Barnes & Noble. Why Barnes & Noble does that, I have no idea, but it's 60 cents off, if that's going to make a difference in your book buying decision.
I was going to say, I'm kind of curious how they determined the 60 cents now. I really want to know what the business mentality behind that one was. I'm kind of curious. I would love to know the reasoning behind that one. And then we do have another question here from Lady Gizmo. So did you meet with them in person, or was everything, I'm guessing this is in regards to publisher, is everything done via email and phone with your publisher? So how do you converse with Kensington?
So initially, everything was done via phone and email. And I actually had all of my 3 books written and turned in from my first series before I met my editor in person. So now we've met in person a handful of times, and I've visited the Kensington offices, and I've met some of the other people that I've worked with at Kensington in the marketing and publicity departments. But for the most part, what we do is all handled via phone and email. You know, I'm in Ohio, she's in New York, and that's the most cost-effective way for us to work together.
I love how I think we just did a shout out to technology. It was definitely, take advantage of the modern day technological means. I love that though. I mean, it's true. You don't have to go to New York and mail things by hand. So much easier now. If there ever was a time to be a writer, it's now. All the more inspiration. So I'm just curious if anyone else has any other questions, or any writing tips or advice or questions about romance. I mean, I feel like you're a wealth of information, so I'm just curious if anyone else has any questions for you. Maybe, yes. I know there's like a 5-second delay between me asking and people getting to comment, so give them a couple seconds to post. But I mean, I'm happy you had the book on sale, because I know a few people on Twitter, when I was posting about it, they said they got the book. So that made me very, very happy. I was like, oh, I feel so official now that I'm a part of this bookish community. People are taking recommendations into consideration. This is awesome. And then, so Kristen, I'm putting the reunion on hold on Overdrive. I don't know what Overdrive is, but that sounds like a good idea. Get the reunion, put it, go get it. And the chase. For some reason, the chase just really resonated with me. I don't know what it was about that book, but I just love that relationship. I think maybe it's because the character was just utterly unique. I don't know. There's something about the chase too. So got the chase and the reunion, and then the other one. Why am I blanking on the second title?
The Offer.
The Offer. I like how clean and classic it is. It's like the chase, the reunion, the offer.
It is very clean and classic. Do you know that's what's funny about those titles is I was using the reunion, the offer, and the chase as sort of placeholders, and I thought they were so simple. And the trend in historical romance right now is sort of the play on words title. So I assumed that those were placeholders only, and that my editor would want to work with me to retitle my books. And when I asked her about that, she said, nope, I love these. These are good. These are the titles that we want. So they were happy with it, and they didn't need me to change them. So they're sort of bucking the trend for today with the historical romance titles.
Yeah, but it worked. So I mean, it was a good idea. And now I know what Overdrive means. Thank you for telling me. So it means you can check the ebook out from your library. I feel like I just learned something. I didn't know what the term was. I know everyone has different ways of saying it. I forget. I haven't had to do an interlibrary loan as a PhD student, but I did for my master's. So I forget what Georgetown had, but it wasn't called Overdrive. I'm going to have to look that up now. So
yeah. Overdrive is the service that provides digital editions for borrowing from the library. So that Overdrive is the company that provides the digital edition. So if you go to Overdrive, you can actually search for the book and search for a library in your area that has the books available for borrowing.
Oh no, I think, as much as I love reading, I always buy my books because I annotate them as I read. So I'm pretty sure the libraries, even digital people, would not appreciate me. I have this need to annotate as I read. I highlight things, especially your book. I was highlighting the lines. Again, I told you, I love the line which is like, how many resurrections can the family have? I think I put in my little note saying, I laughed out loud right here. So can't do that with the library books. So I always end up trying to buy his most, and my dog, he's like having a field day over there if you hear him. He found a squeaky toy and he's having fun. I know I always have to buy my books, and I have all of yours, and now I have to wait till 2019 for the next one. I'm like, I feel like I just got the inside scoop for that, and I'm also a little sad. I'm like, oh, I gotta wait now. I have to go learn some patience. And the dog. Hi. So does anyone? What is it? So yeah, Kristen. So you prefer print a lot more, but free books. Yes, free books are great. So I'm just curious if anyone else has any other questions or. Oh, so Lady Gizmo. Lady Gizmo, nice to meet you, Sarah. You did a nice job with your first live stream. Night, ladies. It was fun. Aw, thank you for joining us, Lady Gizmo. You're welcome anytime. I know she drops into quite a few of my live streams, so that always makes me happy when I see people shooting in and commenting. Makes me smile. And then Kristen, you had to buy a textbook. So yeah, LOL. Textbooks are expensive. I don't know what's going on with the textbook industry, but they make a pretty penny. I I had a textbook that was like a limited edition, and I don't know why the professor had us buy it because it was like one of those very strict limited editions, and it was ridiculously expensive. So textbook buying is no joke.
Yeah. Like, what was the strangest textbook you ever bought?
The strangest? I don't know. I mean, again, I'm a communications person, so when I would do my other classes, I mean, I had to buy math textbooks, and I mean, I was in an advanced calculus class as an undergrad. I don't know what was wrong with my advisor, like how I ended up in that class doing amortization tables by hand. That was ridiculous. So I'm going to go with that one because it was business calculus, and I had no business being in that class, but I was there and trying my hardest. That one was fun. But I mean, I have to admit, there was one, Michel Foucault, all the stuff is digital now anyway. Most of it's public domain, or it's in like digital so you can access it, not necessarily public domain. But there was this really random, like first print, my professor was like, oh, you guys need this edition. And it was $80 for this 150-page pamphlet. We're going, that was a lot of money. Thanks, grad school. Appreciate that.
Yeah, as an undergrad, I did not go to graduate school, but so in my years ago when I was in college, which was a long time ago, I took a class on magic and witchcraft in medieval Europe, and there were a couple of required reading for that class, but one of them was a little yellow book. The title was Servants of Satan. So obviously walking around campus with that book maybe stood out a little bit, but so that was the oddest textbook that I ever had to buy, was the little yellow book called Servants of Satan. I think I still have that book somewhere.
I was gonna say I would keep that just cause. I mean, and then I think I don't know if you guys have heard of Patchwork Girl based off of Frankenstein. So Mary Shelley and Shelley Jackson, she did her takeoff of Frankenstein Patchwork Girl, and I had to buy the CD. And I don't know if y'all have noticed, but CDs are not necessarily a part of laptops anymore. So he was determined to have us buy the CDs. But then once I bought the CD, I was like, I have no idea how to use this. My laptop doesn't have a CD drive. So that was also very fun. So that was another random moment. But it looks like we just got some more questions. So people don't want to let you go yet. They're like, we want to keep Sarah. So that class sounds terrible. Yeah, advanced calculus, but your class sounds awesome. So Sarah, what is the most dramatic thing one of your characters has said, if you can say it without spoilers? So this is from Jess from Me to You. So she wants to know the most dramatic thing a character has said.
Oh, that's a good question. One of the most dramatic things. I don't know if I can say it without spoilers. I think usually the highest drama comes in what you would think of as sort of the black moment, sort of the drama at the end or towards the end when, things all seem to be falling apart. And I don't know if it's easy to say some of those things without spoilers. Does that make sense? I think probably that for me, my characters tend to be more memorable when they're being witty than when they're being dramatic, but I don't know.
I think you have some really great one-liners. I think the loudest I kind of burst out laughing, and I'm gonna be spoiler free, was the details in the chase all came to a head, and the guy had this moment of, you've got to be kidding me. Like, she was like, he had this moment, and I was laughing so hard. I really love your dialogue. We have another question. What is your favorite types of scenes to write?
My favorite types of scenes are revelation moments. So I love in historical romance, one of my favorite devices that people use, that authors use in historical romance, is what I call the horse trick. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a horse trick. Obviously, there are some historical romances where the heroine literally has the ability to do horse tricks. But there are a lot of historical romances, and again, Julie Garwood's really good with this, where the heroine has this ability that is a lot of times unexpected or odd for her gender or whatever, and then there's sort of a moment where the hero realizes it and sort of has realized he's underestimated her, or he's kind of put two and two together and realized, wait, what's going on? And those reveal moments, I think, are the most fun to write, because I love those I love the setup that that you don't know the full story, that the reader knows that the hero doesn't know, or that those moments where she reveals that she does the horse trick, or she's the one who pulls out the 6-shooter and takes out the 3 bad guys in the middle of the Old West, and he's impressed because he had no idea that she had these sharpshooting skills. That is those are the most fun to read, and those moments are fun to write. The moments where she sort of reveals that he's underestimated her.
Oh, this is why I think I love your heroines. Like, you're speaking to my little reading heart over here. I love it. So, so I guess we're
you caught my daughter's Candy and her giant panda bear in the background. I apologize. I should have spent more time. Angela has this, this perfect backdrop of shelves full of colorful books, and you look very literary, and you've got this whole arrangement going on, and I'm here like at the last minute I changed rooms, and I'm sitting up here in the middle of this room that my daughters use as sort of their flop house when they have sleepovers. So there's candy and huge stuffed animal.
I mean, I will admit, again, I live in an apartment, so you guys get the nicest backdrop, and you get the books, and you get the little Funko Pops. So again, I do have some fun with my bookshelves, but I got my copy of Cocktails over here supporting my romance community. No, I think you're making me want M&M now. I also really want like a panda stuffed animal. I'm like, that thing is adorable. I'm like, where does she get it? I mean, I was looking online because I really want a stuffed animal of Toothless, because they now have the next How to Train Your Dragon. So I was looking at stuffed animals, which sounds so weird when I say it out loud, but I was looking at the panda. I'm like, I want one of those now too. Doesn't matter that I'm an adult. I think it's so cute. And then, well, so Kirsten, amazing. And then it's okay. Your kids have one too. Oh my goodness. No, I mean, your dogs, they settle down though. I mean.
Yes, yeah. My dogs were going crazy before. They feed off of each other when one of them gets riled up, and then they go nuts.
I mean, my little guy, I live in an apartment building, so every time someone makes noise in the hallway, it is fair game to start barking. So, I mean, I just kind of wait for him to start. I understand the little fur babies making noise better than most people. And then Kristen, she needs a stuffed Hedwig owl. I used to have a stuffed owl, like a Hedwig. I used to have one of those. I don't know what happened to it. It's probably back at my parents' house, but I used to have a Hedwig stuffed animal. Apparently I'm that person. Oh my goodness. I'm just so excited to talk to you right now. I'm like, is there anything else people wanted to ask, whether it's the stuffed animal or something else, romance related, writing advice, your books? I mean, I feel like that we've covered a lot. I mean, I know you answered all my questions.
Well, it was very exciting to talk to you and do my first ever YouTube live video with you. I appreciate it. You were very kind, and everyone was very kind in their questions, and nobody put me on the spot. So,
Oh no, I mean, you're so sweet. Like, you're this little bright ray of sunshine. You're so thoughtful and meticulous with your answers. You're so eloquent, and you're such a pleasure to talk to. I'm so happy we're able to do this. I mean, I really want to do like an author spotlight on you. I mean, I think you're just so sweet. I'm like, we just needed to do this. It had to be done. We did a video with you, and I needed to happen. I mean, I would have loved to be able, like, you know, I didn't know you when I first went to Bowling Green, and now I'm in DC. So I'm glad, you know, again, technology lets us do this.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because we probably won't be in the same city again for a long time, if ever. So.
Well, what was it? The Researching the Romance Conference. I think they said they're going to do it every 2 years. So, so not next year, but the following year. So I got a little while before I, you know, potentially back in the Ohio area for Bowling Green, if they accept another one of my papers, which hopefully they would. The man who was in charge of the conference was absolutely great. He was wonderful. So, I mean, it was a pleasure going to the conference. I loved it. And I got to meet, you know, amazing people, yourself included. So I would love to go back again. Is that me or you?
No, I think that was me. Sorry. I think my computer just dinged with the notification. Sorry about that, guys.
So like we're holding hostage time at romances. That's what we're doing now.
I think I'm getting my text messages from my iPhone or popping up on my MacBook. It's just my husband telling me that he's on his way home. So.
Oh, I mean, it sounds like if someone has any questions, you know, you got your kids, you got your husband, you got your dogs, you took the time of the day to talk to us, which is awesome and so sweet of you. So unless anyone has any final questions, I might have to just let you go to your life again.
Well, thank you so much. And thank you everybody that listened in or everybody that watches after with the recording that's out there. I had a lot of fun, and I always love to talk about romance and books and historical romance in particular. So this was a blast for me.
Oh, thank you so much for joining me on my YouTube channel. I mean, it was such an honor to have you here, be part of this. And I did include all of your information, so everyone should be following Sara on her. I included her website link, I included her Twitter, I included your Facebook. I think I included your Instagram as well. So you have every single link down there to officially go follow Sara. So you get all the notifications about her writing, what's coming next. So make sure you check it out, because you really should, because she's awesome. I adore her, and I'm so happy we're able to do this. So I think with that, yes, yes, but Kristen, she's thanking you. I'm like, I thank you again. I'm so grateful. You know, you made the time to talk to me tonight. It was so great. I had fun. I hope everyone else did as well. So unless we have any final questions that want to pop up really quickly, maybe, I don't know. I think it's going to be time to call it a night. Oh, we have someone coming in really late. Hi, Amby. Welcome. Coming in right at the end. And then Kristen, yes, thank you for joining. Jess, Lady Gizmo was here. Kate, everyone who joined in. You guys are so awesome. Thank you for watching. Yes, this is the end of the live stream. Coming right in at the end. Oh, I'm sorry. But it's going to be archived on my YouTube channel, so you can go back and watch it. If you have any burning questions for Sara before we say goodnight, I guess, ask away. I love talking about timing. No, I know we have a little 5-second delay. You don't have to apologize. You're so sweet for tuning in. I mean, I hope you're able to watch the archive version, or if you have any questions, ask now. Oh my goodness. Oh,
and if anybody else has a question and they want to message me on Facebook or send me a tweet or hit me up on Instagram or wherever, I'm happy to answer any of your questions there, of course.
And again, I linked them all in the description box, so they are there for you. You gotta go take care of your son. I know, we've been talking for a while. I know your husband's on your home and, you know, on his way home, and we have been going for like almost an hour and a half, so I think it's probably time to go to sleep.
All right, thanks everyone. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much, Angela.
Oh my gosh, thank you. Thank you for joining and for answering questions. You're so sweet. You're just such a pleasure to talk to. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful night. Bye.